Hi everybody and welcome to part 2 of our FAQ series. Today we're talking about the next steps of when you first arrive to your new study abroad country. So we'll be talking about phone plans, SIM cards, registering for classes, and all of that will be in the episode. Do I need to buy a SIM card or will an international plan work?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on where you're going. I think at least going to Spain, some of my friends that I made had international plans. I, however, opted for a SIM card. And so a SIM, usually you get like a prepaid plan. So it's usually at least the one I got was like 30 gigs or something like that a month for about 34 euros. So it wasn't crazy, but it wasn't cheap either. However, I will say the one upside to a SIM card, especially if you're in Europe, is that a lot of SIM cards, especially the prepaid ones, have international plans attached to them. And so when I was traveling around Europe during my study abroad, like I went to the UK, for example, and it just immediately switched to a really good UK provider. And I didn't have to think about that. The only thing I had to think about was, now I have a much more limited amount of data that I could use on the international plans. Like if I was traveling back to back, I just had to consider that. And I did end up running out of gigs during my spring break abroad, but that's a separate story. But I will say, depending on the provider you have in the US, opting for the international plans month to month can be quite expensive. I know one of my friends was paying like $100 a month for her international plan, and it truthfully was kind of spotty at times. It wasn't the best. So I really like the SIM card option. You also kind of get to experience what it's like to have a new phone number. But yeah, I really think it depends on the person. I'm a big SIM supporter. And you'll also have that SIM when you go back. If you travel back for even 2 weeks, you can then just slip in your new SIM, activate it for a couple of days or, for $30, and then you're good.
I didn't get a SIM card, and I would say get a SIM card because I'm on my dad's plan, so he has an international plan. And when you go to like more niche places, it just does not work. Like when they took us on trips, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, let's look up where to go." I'm like, "Okay, not on my phone," because it is easier. Like everyone was kind of scrambling to buy a SIM card, so I got lazy and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna do that. Horrible decision. Don't do that. I think you should get a SIM card." But I don't know what the rest of you did.
For me, what was really nice about the program was they had like a little like welcome box, so a SIM card was there. And I wasn't considering an international plan because it was expensive. But I think it's a lot nicer if you have a parent or like a family member that you can share that with. Because I had a friend who I traveled with who had an international plan and hers worked. But one thing about the SIM card that I didn't really enjoy having a new phone number because for like iMessage, like it was just that phone number and I'm texting someone and they're like, "Who is this?" I already had WhatsApp in my phone, so my WhatsApp was my US number while my iMessage was my international number. So I usually would speak to people on WhatsApp with my US number, so even after I left we could keep that connection. And what I really also liked about the SIM card was it was really cheap, like maybe 10 euros for like a month or something.
The international plan is a bit more expensive.
Yeah, and they'll give us like goodie bags or something. Like the plan itself was just really nice. And there was like a limited that you could use anywhere in Europe, like you mentioned. And that always worked out, and I never actually ran out of money because there was a time I put a lot in because my mom was worried because I was going to Italy and she was like, "No, are you sure?" So I put a lot in, but I ended up not having to use that much. So, and I think it was like 25 like euros, and I didn't end up using that much. So yeah, it's pretty a good way to save money.
The one thing I will say about WhatsApp, that's so interesting that you did that. That did not work for me, so I just ended up, I didn't like delete my messages, but I put them in like a folder of like an app folder and like buried it so I wouldn't be able to like see it and turned off notifications. In WhatsApp you can actually really easily change between numbers. So I like added all of my contacts into WhatsApp, changed my international number, and then like there was no confusion. There was a little bit of confusion because I had some text messages that I had to respond to through iMessage, and a few of my friends were like really confused. So be prepared to be like, "Oh no, this is so and so. Sorry, this is a different number." But usually with WhatsApp, at least, you can cut that confusion out. It's really flawless.
And also, your SIM card doesn't just go away after you go abroad. Like you continue to keep it. Like I continue to pay for mine every 6 months. So I have it. So it's still active and can keep the same number. So yeah.
Yeah, I also did SIM card. I got a SIM card while I was there, and before I left, I thought it was very overwhelming. I was like, how the heck am I going to get a SIM card? Because I feel like it's very different. Yeah. Like in the U.S., if you land in an airport, you don't typically see a SIM card place. But when you go to these other places, as soon as you land, you walk out of the terminal and there's people trying to sell you SIM cards. So it's much easier to get than I thought. I also use Verizon here, and I know that's either $100 a month or $10 a day, which is crazy expensive. Yeah. So what I actually did is I did the $10 a day for the first day just because I needed maps to to find a place to get a SIM card when I first got there. So I just took the $10 a day thing, but got the SIM card basically right away. And yeah, I think mine was maybe $30 for 6 months there, and I probably had to refill it once or twice, and it maybe cost me an extra $10, but super cheap compared to I'm probably paying $40 or $50 a month here. So it's definitely much cheaper to do that. And not that difficult. And one thing, at least in my experience, I was still able to use iMessage and stuff with my friends back home without them being charged international fees or anything like that, as well as FaceTime.
So there are a couple class questions. Some people said they're worried about taking classes and want general advice. Some people are saying, how do you would you take core classes for your major, or should you opt for electives abroad? Which one of that?
I can talk about that.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd say, as based on my experience and what I've heard, chemical engineering is definitely one of the harder majors to study abroad with. The chemical engineering department here has just the curriculum's kind of weird. It doesn't line up with even some schools in America. So it was difficult for me to kind of figure out how I was going to get classes to transfer over. And I, one of my faculty advisor actually told me that I wouldn't be able to study abroad just because of that. And I was like, I don't know about that one. So I kind of took that as a challenge. And I worked really closely with my Chemie program coordinator. She was a fantastic resource. I love her so much. She did so much for me during this. And I really just researched as many schools as I could that U of R had partnerships with, looked at all their course catalogs, any course that was even remotely similar to the requirements I needed. I would send her the kind of, course breakdown, what kind of content was in it, which can be found on all the university websites. And she would send them off to the respective professors to get them approved. And eventually I ended up getting 3 schools with classes approved. And keep in mind, I was just doing this for the 2 classes I absolutely needed to take the semester I was going abroad, which meant if I didn't take them that semester, I wouldn't have been able to continue my degree and complete it on time, because the following semester I was taking classes that those were prerequisites for. So I would say minimize the amount of classes that you need to take if it's difficult to line up. So of course I wasn't going to do any more than the 2 engineering classes I needed to take, and then for my other 2 classes I just did social science electives because those were requirements for my major, but because there's more variety kind of with, it can just be any social science elective, it doesn't have to be a specific social science elective, it was much easier to find classes where the credit would transfer.
So in a similar boat, for BMEs, we're advised to study abroad either sophomore spring or fall, and that's because the classes we take there are not U of R specific, so to say. So you're easily able to find those courses in a different university, whether in the U.S. or even outside. So that's something I always tell BME majors who are thinking of studying abroad, consider those 2 periods in your life, periods in your college life. And a lot of people consider taking core classes abroad if your schedule is flexible and you're not in a situation like a lot of engineers are. You consider taking core classes abroad because when you go abroad, your credits only transfer over, but you don't get a grade. So if it's a hard class, if you're a CS major, they always say take hard classes abroad so that you get the grade, but that doesn't affect your GPA. So kind of depending on how your program is, what your schedule looks like, and try to rearrange it that way. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I just want to add quick, talk to people in your major that have studied abroad, because they are like the biggest resource. I did say, like I said, it was difficult for me, and that was mainly because I didn't have anyone like at the school that had studied abroad in chemie that I could reach out to and be like, what classes did you take? And there was only one university in New Zealand with classes already approved, and they weren't accepting exchange students because it was right after COVID at that point. So I was basically starting over. So yeah, if you can find someone that's gone before as a resource, that's amazing.
And to add to that, for me, like, I was the first person to go to University of Bristol in such a long time, and a lot of BME majors go to Australia or go to Spain. I was like, I want to go to the UK. So I had to do the work in a sense that I had to look at different universities and then look at their courses, rather they call them modules. Like, look at everything. Sometimes some websites aren't so clear, and find, when they're, the courses they offer, and if it's in the fall or in the spring. That's something really important, because you could be going in the fall and then the class is offered in the spring. That doesn't work out. All the classes are year long.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So you have to look at that, and then afterwards, what I did that was really helpful was creating like a Google Doc with like the description and a link to it of whatever course, and then also U of R's description and then link. That's something that really helped the different advisors send. So I just sent it to all of them, like, here's a, like, let me know if it's fine, because I got a lot of back and forth, and it was a lot. And one thing I found was I had to rearrange my schedule a bit if I chose certain schools, which is why I chose Bristol, because I was basically taking all the same classes a BME major will be taking here at U of R, but just abroad. So that worked out great. If not, I had to rearrange a few things around, and that was too much.
I definitely say speak, like kind of Bradley was saying, speak to your, academic advisor or whoever your department head is, even a teacher. They can give you advice, but you kind of have to do the work yourself and bring it to them. So for history majors, it's it's easier to study abroad. There's more flexibility in courses. And if you go to the specific place you're studying, like if your focus area is in, European history and you go to study in Europe, they're obviously going to be like, that's great, your courses are approved. One thing to be careful of is writing courses. The U of R is not very keen on upper level writing courses being taken abroad. So if it's possible, you can take that before, but or after, just leave time for that. If you're a senior studying abroad in your fall semester, kind of plan around that. If you're archaeology or history major, archaeology is actually a little bit harder. If you're a history major, you should definitely study abroad.
Yeah, no, I think for languages it's also pretty easy, especially if you're doing an immersion program. Core classes can be difficult, just the way language program here at Rochester is structured, because you have your advanced language classes, and then you usually have like 2 literature courses or maybe a history course. So getting a core class for a language approved can be difficult, so usually it's just electives. Also, I was looking to do a chemistry class abroad, and I ran into something that like Chichuku had mentioned, whereas the class actually runs the entire year. And so if you are double majoring in something like I am, right, where they're pretty polar opposite subjects, and you want to take both subjects abroad, definitely reach out to the coordinator abroad to see if that's even possible, because sometimes you might have to focus on one major versus the other like I did.
Well, that's all we have for you guys today. Stay tuned for part 3 of our FAQ series, which will be coming up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you all then.